Hello everyone. Today I'm going to discuss about the fractures and its classifications. So if you see the classification of the fractures, so these are classified into so many different types of the fractures are there. So according to the these are open and also closed and also exposure of the uh, tissue, so divided into the open fracture and also closed fractures. If you see in the simple or closed fractures, in the simple and closed fractures, the bone fragments are not going to be exposed to the outside. So it's not going to the exposed to the outside, but the bone can break within the soft tissue envelopes and maybe continue to the exterior. So if you see in the simple or closed fracture, so the bone fragments are going to stay in the soft tissue. It's not exposed outside. Here, there is no bleeding into the outside. Only the fracture occurs, but it stays in the soft tissue. So when it exposed to outside, including the bleeding and also swelling of the joint, so it may associated with is a compound fracture or open fractures. Open means it comes exposed to outside. Closed means it's not exposed to outside. So that is the difference between the simple and compound fractures. So in the compound or open fractures, it may be ripped through the soft tissue, or the soft tissue itself may be damaged by the external forces, exposing the bone into the external atmosphere. So this bone is going to come outside. So along with the exposed to outside, it will give the bleeding to the outside. This depends upon the injury type mechanism as well as the external force, how much they are going to get the external force. So it depends upon the external force. So the fractures is going to be closed or also open. So if you see the other classifications, so this is going to be the other divided into these fractures are going to divide into the complete fractures and also incomplete fractures. So if you see in the incomplete fracture, incomplete means the fracture is not going to be like not complete. So only is the line is incomplete, only one cortex is going to be broken. If you see in the bone, so here is going to be, if you see the cortex, only one side is broken down. Other side is going to be the intact. So this is the incomplete fracture. Only one side cortex is going to be broken. So coming to the complete fracture, so this complete fracture is going to be, the fracture fragments are going to be complete. The both cortex are going to be like a broken. So if you see here, this side as well as both sides are going to be get the fractures. So if you see here, so this is the complete like a fracture. So here the fragments are is separated and also it has the break at the both sides of the cortex. So these are the two types of the fractures. It's an open fracture, so it's a complete fracture and incomplete fracture. So if you see the other classifications or other subdivisions of the complete fractures, so these complete fractures again divided into so many types of the fractures. So these are the transverse fractures, oblique or spiral fractures, impacted fractures, and also comminuted fractures. If you see in the transverse fractures, the fragments are usually in the place after the reductions. So still after the reduction, they're still going to be in the remain the same place. So exactly in the like a transverse plane, so the fracture fragments are going to be, we can see. So there is no complete disruption, but both sides is a fracture is there. That's both cortex are going to be involved. If you see the oblique fractures, so they tend to be shortened and also replaced even the bone is splitted. So it's going to be, if you see here, the oblique fractures are the angle because of the rotation and also because of the mechanism is going to be altered because of the oblique fractures. So they tend to be they shorten and also redisplace even if the bone is splintered. So it's going to be after that also it's going to get the in the oblique shape. So that is the oblique type of the fractures. Next one is the impacted fractures. The fragments are jammed tightly together and fracture line is distinctive. So if you see in this one, we are going to there's going to be like a fracture fragments are going to be tied together. So that is the impacted fractures. Combinated fractures means here you can see so more than like a bone fragments are going to be more than 2 or 3 also. In this condition, in case of multiple fractures, the bone fragments are going to divide into the more than 2 fragments, and also is a multiple small pieces becomes like a is going to get the multiple small pieces. So this type of fragments are called this type of fracture is called combinated fracture. And also, if you see these fractures are going to be just now we discussed, and also segment, so many classifications are there according to the international standards. One more classification, the Muller's classification is there. So we'll discuss here. And also incomplete fractures. So these incomplete fractures are going to be is only like is not going to get the complete like a once complete fracture. Is they are not going to get the both cortex are not going to be involved. Here is going to be, if we see the examples of the incomplete fractures are going to be the green stick fractures. So here the bone is buckled or bent. Here is not going to get the fracture, but they are going to get the bend at one place, but slight cortex is going to be the damage. So this type of, if you see here, the fracture is the green stick. How the green stick we cannot break, right? So that means some extent we are going to bend completely. So, but there is no break. So if it continues this one, so the fragments it may get the break in the bone. So this type of fractures are commonly seen in the children's, and also their springy bones. So why they're going to get this green stick fractures in the children's, because the ossification is not completed in the children's. In those people, so these fractures are going to be commonly seen. And also is a plastically is a deformed bones. So if there any like abnormality in the bones, there may chance to get the green stick fractures, especially in the children's. And also next one is the compressor fractures. This is crumpled or cancellous bone. The compressor fractures is because of the compression or any like a compression force, or because of the any injuries. So may chance to get the compression. So this type of commonly seen in the vertebral bodies, and also calcaneum and also tibial plateau. If anybody jump from the height or suddenly fall on the like any history of the like a washroom injuries, if any slip in the bathroom because of the slippery, if they fall on the buttocks, so it may chance to get the compression, so it may use the fracture in the vertebral body. Or if anybody jump from the height, so may chance to get the calcaneum fracture and also tibial fractures. So these fractures are called as compressor fractures.